Hello, everyone in podcast land. I'm David.
And I'm Jono.
And this is the podcast where we rip-roar our post-apocalyptic cars down the long and lonely road. It's the Let's Wing It podcast.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about expectations, because not just because of Twisted Metal. We're going to talk about a couple other things like Elemental, and also finish off with a little bit of Starfield, because, you know, the thematic of this episode is expectations, because each of these had different levels that, David, you and I have had discussions privately and on this podcast about each of these properties. And expectations meets reality is always that kind of thing that, you always have to face eventually. And each of these have very different thoughts. And
yeah, I always find it fascinating to see and discuss how your expectations can change for the better or for the worse your experience watching something. And sometimes your expectations are really unfair. And it's not even like you think it's going to be good or you think it's going to be bad. You just expect something to be a certain way. And when the property doesn't go that direction, it feels disappointing. Is that fair, or is that kind of baloney?
I mean, I think that's just like comes with the territory, especially with like a lot of these properties, right? They all have history to them when you think about it. Like, Twisted Metal has the video game franchise history to it. Elemental has the Pixar / Disney history to it. So, technically it should be good. And then,
Starfield, the Bethesda Xbox history now.
Yeah, Bethesda has that huge, long history, getting famous from Fallout 3 to the Oblivion Elder Scrolls games. And then, they've spent, I think, the last 10 years making this game. So there was some high expectations. So Twisted Metal, video game adaptations, most people will probably give it low. Elemental, probably medium high. And then Starfield, high. So like that's the kind of levels that I'm looking at least.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start in that order? Let's start with the public perception were of low expectations.
Yeah.
Before watching Twisted Metal, which we're about to talk about, what were your expectations going into it?
Yeah. But actually, before we get into expectations, I did have an expectation that you're going to talk about our sponsor, Beacon. The number one reason a listener or viewer will turn off a new podcast or video is because of bad audio. That's why this podcast is powered by Beacon Mic. All the features you need are built right into the mic, which makes the connectivity easy via USB-C, gives you the best of broadcast quality audio without a steep learning curve, and saves you a ton of money by not having to buy a bunch of broadcast gear. So if you want to save $20 and get yourself a nice new mic, head to beacon.com/discount/wing, or at checkout, just use the offer code WING.
Wing.
Yeah, I would have to say that actually, just to add on to the sponsor stuff, is that since now I'm on a PC and I actually have access to software, it's actually quite nice. So I mean,
there's a lot of fine control.
Like noise suppression, is adaptive, snapshot, a lot of things that I don't understand, and I'm kind of techie. But honestly, you could just plug it right in. That's what I did for the last 3 months on a Mac, and it sounded great. So check it out.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah,
it's I appreciate things that are really easy to use, and you get maybe not 100% of it, but you get more than what you need out of it. And it's just a great workhorse, and it just sounds good right out of the box. Yeah. I love it.
You don't need a Shure M7B. You just need one of these. But yeah.
But what I do need is for you to tell me what your expectations of Twisted Metal were.
So let me kind of preface something here too. I need to kind of preface. So on Pad Podcast, this is your first one. I've said this before. So my reviews can go wildly different from
crazy.
ABC person or David per se. Is because like I go into things with a level of thought. I do know as a professional, I can't do that. You shouldn't do that. But I'm human. I'm just gonna err. And this is the Let's Wing It podcast. I'm just gonna roll with it. I have given things that I didn't think I would like super high, things I really loved and really had expectations super low, and just all over the place. Because like when you go in and if I get that surprise going, oh, I like this. I like this more than I thought I would, then my scaling just goes crazy. So, with that being said, with Twisted Metal is at one of those situations where it's super low because it is a video game franchise. Anthony Mackie is all right. Like I thought he was okay in the Marvel movies, MCU, and I was really worried about Sweet Tooth, how they portrayed it with Samoa Joe playing the human physical shape of him, but Will Arnett is the voice of Sweet Tooth, so it was kind of two actors playing one character. But that being said, and also being a video game adaptation, they have not had the best history in traditional media. But I can safely say this series was freaking awesome. Like it would just hit the right points everywhere that I wanted it to be. It wasn't supremely polished like Game of Thrones, where it had that cinematic and awesome appeal. It just felt really grounded, and everything felt a little janky. But when you expect a world that is apocalyptic in this sense, it's gonna get janky. So yeah, low expectations but high outcomes. I would give this like 8.5 or 9. I'm like, if you like it, you like this kind of style of movie, go watch it.
Yeah, no, I can vibe with that. I talked a little bit about my opinions last week, but I'll go a little bit more into details, and we can talk spoilers and stuff. I sort of had a similar experience. My expectations were really, really low.
Yeah.
Based on the preview footage they gave of, it was the scene where Sweet Tooth and Anthony Mackie's character are like in the casino, and he like pushes them against, and they start singing Thong Song. And with very little context, oh boy, that clip is really bad and really cringeworthy. So my expectations were really low. And then as the show came out, kind of word of mouth was positive. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll check this out. And I checked it out. And it sets out to do something pretty basic. And I think it fully succeeds at doing that. It's nothing, groundbreaking, but it's there to create a fun post-apocalyptic property where it's not super deep. But it's characters you'll care about and like. There's stakes that you'll care about. It takes turns that aren't necessarily fully expected. And there's just good sequences, both like character-driven ones, but also action sequences. And when at the end of the season, you finally get your like full-on Twisted Metal fight.
Yeah.
It was pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I was pretty hyped about it.
Yeah, I mean, graphically, it didn't really push the boundaries. And the storyline, when you actually like look at a macro high level, it is like the typical like race against the clock. There's going to be betrayal somewhere. There's like a romance in the story. And everything was very like, oh, I've seen this before, or I've seen some sort of element of this before. But how I kind of look at it is that, is like, you can be repetitive. Like I've watched anime, like anime is like in the core roots, it's all repetitive. It's just, it's the same thing. I'm not going to go into
There's tropes that work.
Yeah, tropes that work. But it's just like how you execute. What is the journey from point A to B? What is that like? And I think they hit everything really well. Like there's some things I'm like, ooh, I want to know more about that aspect. I hope they explore that part and give me that more.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit later if like our thoughts on a sequel. But let's start with like the characters, because you were saying that you don't have strong feelings about Anthony Mackie. But I kind of felt the same, where I'm like, yeah, I like him in the Marvel movies and stuff, but like I've never really thought of him. He's not like one of those people when you're fan casting a movie, you're like, oh, Anthony Mackie, I need that guy. But within minutes of the start of this, I was like, oh, he's perfect.
Yeah.
He's like got just the right amount of like kind of like sass and like silliness and irreverence. But emotionally I was engaged with him, and like kind of like these little stakes and these little moments that he was giving. And I thought he was great. I really enjoyed him. And like, he's not going to win an Oscar or an Emmy or whatever for this, but he really did his job extremely well.
Yeah. Actually, maybe even take one step back from that. Like, here's the premise of this story is that it is a world that is current to daytime. So it's 2023, but the world technically ended 20 years ago. Like, so 2003. And there's a lot of references about life in 2003, which is perfect and great. But long story short is that Anthony Mackie has to go from New San Francisco. Oh, actually, wait. Now let me start right back. Is that the world ended because a electronic computer bug took down all electronics and like anything electrical at one point, and the world just turned to shit.
Hmm.
People were surviving Last of Us style and became.
But the cities, the cities all became walled cities.
Yeah.
So it's like they're enclosed, but everything else is just like Wild West.
Yeah, Wild West. People do delivery runs called Milkmen, which is Anthony Mackie's character. And basing up, it is going from New San Francisco because he was promised to have a, I won't get into character yet because we could talk about it, a place in that city as long as he goes all the way there to, I think, Chicago.
Yep.
And then back because to pick up something over there. And he runs into a whole bunch of hijinks, different characters we'll talk about. And yeah, at the end, he gets betrayed because he needs to compete in the future. I guess the sequel, what's going to be, is what actually Twisted Metal actually is. So this is kind of, in the video game lore, this is kind of like the prologue, which is kind of cool. And yeah, like that's basically the story. We'll talk about each part because we'll talk about each characters. But yeah, Anthony Mackie, like, I think for me, when I was talking to you on WhatsApp, I was talking about, it's like, oh, Anthony Mackie's John Doe character. It was getting to the line of cringy until I saw his backstory. And I was like, oh, no wonder why he's kind of cringy, childish, is because he grew, like, he
never got to grow up.
Yeah, he never got to grow up. He was a kid in this world that he just kind of fixed up the car and just did things. So he never really matured around people to know what is the sensibility. So after that episode, I'm like, oh, everything makes sense. And yeah, I think after I learned that, I'm like, Anthony Mackie, you're a good egg. Like, you did John Doe perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I was with him. I thought, I don't know how much of his own driving and stunts he's doing, but I just, like, I was engaged to him, and that's what I want out of a protagonist, is just, like, to care about them and to root for them.
Yeah.
And I felt the same way after, kind of going over the first couple hurdles with Stephanie Beatrice's character, Quiet.
Yeah.
Who, is kind of introduced, and she's not, she's sort of working against Anthony Mackie, where she's fighting for herself and her own survival. And so they kind of cross paths a couple times, but they're usually at odds. But then they slowly learn to, work together and team up and eventually love each other. And I really like that journey too. Like, right away, you're very sympathetic to her because she has to watch her brother kill himself.
Yeah.
And then so she's on the revenge path while she's trying to survive. And so what did you think of that character in that journey?
Yeah, so, Stephanie Beatrice is that one kind of actress that I had kind of like my eye on since Modern Family, and this is not like kind of like.
Is she on Modern Family?
Yeah,
I've never watched that far.
I've watched Modern Family like 3 or 4 times, like just having the background kind of going.
Damn.
And she plays Sofia Vergara's sister. That's really all I need. But then Brooklyn Nine-Nine came around, and she was like really big, and I think she did a musical. I can't remember which one exactly.
She's in Canto.
Yeah, so she's also in Canto. So she's like, her career is really taking off, which is really cool, especially with this kind of environment now, with everyone being really inclusive. And she's kind of like looked at as like, oh, you need like a really good person to fill this slot. She's really good, or just as a good actress, she's great. But Stephen, like, Quiet, the character is really cool because you just see her kind of struggle between the balance of like, I want to get revenge on Agent Stone and also find a place in her world, just like John Doe does, which is Anthony Mackie's character. And you can see her kind of like keeps like flipping between the two because she's like, oh, full on, I'm just going to use John Doe as a vehicle to do this. Yet then she starts feeling bad and wants to forgive him. Then she tries, she gets almost killed, and then she like learns to let go, but sees John Doe not being able to let go, and it kind of goes back to it. But her character starts off in the beginning, just like the hero's arc. She's now different because now she's like a Robin Hood. And so, I mean, yeah, like I think it's like her character, it starts off kind of like, oh, she's so annoying. But then after the restaurant scene, when they're stuck in there, the bottle episode, really loved her too.
Yeah. No, and I mean, that's the tension that a like good writing needs to have, is like, you kind of have to love and hate people from the beginning,
Yeah.
but like it has to be just the right amount. And I never found myself annoyed with her, except maybe when they were breaking out from the law base or whatever, and I was like, just help them. Just team up, like stay together and work together. It'd be so much easier.
Yeah.
That being said, I was really not impressed that they knocked out the dude that helped them escape, and then they just left him. I was like, yeah, Stu. I was like, come on, man, that's fucked up.
So yeah, those like the two kind of like characters that are kind of like recurring, kind of like running jokes, but they kind of played a great pivotal role. Was like Stu and Mike, and Stu's like the he kind of represents the type of person that they're kind of visualizing as a normal person that's kind of like, oh, he has like nothing super special about him, but he tries his best and still gets kind of fucked a little bit.
Yeah.
And
when he wants to be a good person.
Yeah.
But circumstances are hard.
Circumstances are hard and he has to do the hard stuff. But yeah, like he just totally just gets screwed like over and over again until he gets power, but also still gets kind of sad. And we'll talk about that a little bit more.
I know.
Later.
I was sad at the end.
Yeah, the ending is really sad when you think about it. But yeah. So yeah, actually going back to is like John Doe, Quiet, Sweet Tooth, Agent Stone are the main characters in this whole series.
Yeah.
And they are Twisted Metal characters in the game, which is really cool. I think those Tinker, Raven, Calypso's in there too. Twister as well. She's in there in the little go-kart. And that's really cool. So they kind of have a good balance. They didn't get everyone.
Yeah.
Which is fine because it's going to probably come out in the second one, season 2. If they make season 2, please, Peacock, be cool. Just do a season 2. But who knows with this kind of climate now
Don't
these
feel
days.
like it, yeah.
But yeah. So what did you think of Sweet Tooth? Because I kind of gave my thoughts earlier about Sweet Tooth.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I was unsure. He was probably the character that took a little bit longer for me to really accept. Especially when they go, like when he's a villain, because he's in the episode he's introduced, he's kind of, straight up antagonist. They're trying to get through Vegas and he's chasing after them and is like literally going to kill them. And then it's like kind of a little bit silly and he's doing a show and stuff. And I couldn't quite figure out what the balance would be, but I was won over by him pretty quickly, especially when the circumstances allow him to be a hero. So when, everyone's going to die at the law dam, like the base.
Yeah.
And he comes in and he rescues everyone. And he's just having such a good time doing it. And everyone's like so grateful to him. And then that kind of turns and he starts to have like his little following.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, I can vibe with this. And I found myself charmed by it. And my brain was, at odds a little bit in the sense of like, I could tell that the person doing the actions wasn't doing the voice.
Yeah.
And I always find that a little discombobulating.
Yeah.
It might not be quite the way, right?
Yeah.
But I always find that like there's a little bit of a disconnect.
Yeah.
But I really cared, and when they get to the part where he fucking lights his head on fire, or like when he's talking about his backstory and how that fucking dog upstaged him and he killed the dog in front of everyone and shit. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm into this. Like, he's fucking crazy, but he's likable crazy.
Yeah.
At least until he abandons Stu, or like, how does the last season? So it's been a couple weeks since I watched it. Yeah.
So the last scene with Stu. So, just for the viewers, if you don't care, it's spoilers. Stu kind of like gets saved by Sweet Tooth, and Stu and Sweet Tooth become best friends because they both have S names and everything, which is kind of neat.
The S bro.
But Sweet Tooth during the last battle killed one of their allies. I don't know, Twisted Metal is kind of like a battle royale anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And he gets mad. He's gonna kill Mike, but he stops him. So Stu actually shoots Sweet Tooth in the head.
Oh, right.
And they kind of jump out, get a car, and finally run him over, and then run away. So Stu and Mike kind of like go in the distance. They're not in love. They're just friends who just want to survive. And they just kind of run away. So like, it's just that Stu kind of realized that Sweet Tooth is not a good guy. Like they introduce him as an antagonist. He is technically the antagonist, but it's just like a likable antagonist, kind of like Loki in a way. Like you kind of like him, but you also
and it's like he works. You like him, and he's kind of on your side in the sense that like really the real antagonist of the season is the police officer. What's his name?
Agent Stone.
Agent Stone. He's like, when you look at the structure of the show, he is the antagonist, and he's actively working against both Quiet and John Doe.
Yeah.
And he's chasing them.
Yeah.
And he is so hateable.
Yeah.
And I fucking hate him in the way that the show wants me to. Mm-hmm. And so every time, he loses, you cheer. Every time he wins, you get mad, and you're like, you gotta get him back. And so the show really works well in that sense of like kind of hitting that like reptile part of your brain and just like scratching the itch for like good guys win, bad guys lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things because like, just for context too about why you hate him is that he so back in 2003, he is actually a mall security cop. He's actually not a cop when you actually they play the story. And he's just like has that like issue of power because I'm going to assume his dad bullied him because his dad was actually a cop.
It seems like that.
Yeah, it seems like it. And then,
like, but even before all they show this, one of the first lines he gives you is like, I was told like, if you want, big crime to disappear, you have to like eliminate the small crime. Because if you allow the small crime, all the big crime starts showing up. And so like, you kind of get this idea of like, he is a, unbending lawman to a fault in a world where like there is no law.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? And you're like, oh God, this guy's going to be bad news.
Yeah. I mean, like when you look at it, like in like D&D rules in alignment, he's like chaotic good. He'll just like, he's kind of like I kind of look at, he's like in a facade of playing a cop and he wants to like, okay, I got to do cop things and I will have to take out the bad guys. So therefore to keep up this facade. Cause like he says he's a cop, but like I said, he isn't a cop. And, even in the backstory, his wife leaves him.
Neighbors
hate him. And the only reason why people come up to him because they think he's a cop. And then he goes off and kills innocent people because they're robbing the people and kills a kid.
They're trying to survive.
Trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic world. So he kind of like leans into that character of just being a cop and just literally just keeps doing what he's doing, just killing everybody.
I think he's more lawful evil. And like he's like not quite full evil. He's kind of like somewhere between neutral and evil because I don't think he thinks he's evil.
Yeah.
But the show wants you to definitely identify him as evil. I was kind of curious if they would show like, the town he's defending, like the people behind why he's, set up this encampment in the law and the outpost. If there was like, a city of like 5,000 innocent people that he was protecting. Yeah. But the show just wants you to fucking hate him.
Yeah.
So you don't see that. The only people under his command are other police officers that are also fucking assholes.
Yeah.
And you hate every single one of them. And every scene with them is them abusing their power over people and basically terrorizing people.
Well, wasn't he? I think maybe he was like protecting a town, like is a population that basically enough enjoyed slavery. I remember like Quiet's backstory. I'm not too sure if that's the same town or not. Like that was the only.
Oh no, that's a different town because that was San Diego.
Oh, okay.
Or like that was in California. And he's more Midwest.
Yeah.
And like I think if they broke down the lore and you talk to the writers, I bet it might be a small town kind of thing that he's protecting.
Yeah.
But the show doesn't show it, and I think that's with the express purpose of keeping you without any sympathy for him.
Yeah.
Because even that when he's they're giving his backstory, I was like, oh, are they going to make me sympathize with him? Because he gets betrayed by his neighbor, gets his nose broken, all his guns stolen. You're like, oh man. And then he goes and he gets his moment to be a hero by protecting the restaurant. But by his actions, he kills a bunch of people trying to just survive and eat food from a place that was no longer running because it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
But he shoots them all because they're making fun of him for being a mall cop.
Yeah. And he actually inadvertently kills a kid too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you pity him, but you don't like. I didn't sympathize with him. He's just a fucking loser, and he's on his power trip, and he's like a cop on a power trip. He's a character we've seen but pushed to like the millionth degree in a world that's just like bonkers.
Yeah.
I found some of the writing around his backstory a little bit heavy-handed of like, like making fun of him to his face while he's pointing a gun at them. Like, that's not what people would do. Like, if there's a cop pointing a gun at, like, if there's a mall cop pointing a gun at you, you're not going to be like, oh, you're a fucking mall cop. You're just a loser.
You're a little bitch. No.
Yeah, it's like, you'd be like, no, you're making peace, and you're like, oh man, it's just a misunderstanding. Like, but the show has to, explain the character in as little time as possible.
Yeah. So like, I mean, his character is just made to be hated, and also he like makes Quiet's brother commit suicide, and he just does all these heinous things. Like they'll like bait people to like steal from a truck because there's no other supplies. I mean, like you just see that one scene. I'm like, obviously anyone would go. I would go for that truck. Like who wouldn't? I wouldn't just simply just run up to the truck. Of course, I'd just do a couple laps. But I mean, that's
but it's the thing. Yeah, it's like it's interesting that he presents himself as the law, because he's really like, if he does see that way, he's entrapping people. Like, he's not trying to prevent crime. He's trying to kill people by using the justification of crime as like, I'm protecting the law.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's like the crew that runs on the semis, which I really enjoyed.
I love the whole semi system.
Yeah, I thought that was so fun.
It's so cool, like how they like made a mobile like city that runs on poop power, I guess. And basically it has like all those like interesting kind of like stories, like for the Twisted Metal, like Granny Dread's in there. And
that's another Twisted Metal character.
Yeah, she plays in the game. She plays like an old lady that basically enough just like is sick. Like I remember, if I recall, her story is that she's so sick of all the noise because all the Twisted Metal characters are doing it, and so she wants to go and kill them all and ask Calypso for the wish. And so that's kind of like it's a very stupid character when you actually look at the video game, but how they handled her character was really cool. Is that she's like a very a sexually progressive grandmother that is gonna pass away, and she's the one who kind of like a trucker, and she just started this whole commune and this mobile city that is actually appears to be very safe, and is how John Doe and Quiet soup up their cars and become destructive, like a force to be reckoned with on the highway, and how she kind of like made that decision. She's dying, but she's not dead yet, but she's like, I think it's my time to go. That was really cool. Like,
I thought that was a good, nice little play on, what your expectations were, where they send off our main characters to go on a quest to pick up some herbs from a pharmacist person who was also a character I enjoyed, and I enjoyed, her poisoning them and all that stuff. But then they come back and they realize that it's not medicine to heal Granny, it's medicine to help her go to sleep forever. And I thought that it was a nice little send off that they like put her in her nice little 2003 Beamer, and they push her off the truck, and then you're like, okay, and then they blow her up, and you're like, all right, okay.
I just loved it because it's just like it felt like they would just like let her go, like, oh, okay, they're just gonna leave the car behind, and then they literally make her explode, which is, when you think about it, that is her character. Or I mean, that is the universe. It's just like to blow them up because that's how they die. And I was like, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that whole part. I thought I couldn't tell if the party on the trucks would be the best fucking time of my life.
Yeah.
Or if I would be disgusted and throw up and then want to go sleep. I couldn't tell. I was like, kind of caught in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird universe of how everything goes. But I'll give it the benefit of doubt. It was cool.
Yeah, and I think like world building in general of the show is good. It's not like anything special. I think like cities being closed and there's runners between the cities. That's like a post-apocalyptic thing we've seen before.
Yeah,
I like the different tribes, but I thought like they weren't particularly deep.
No.
Especially like I thought the trucking tribe was cool.
That was the only one that was actually deep, like because they showed
there's a little bit to it. But like then there's the like what are they called? Like the priest one,
The
or
preacher,
whatever. The preachers, or the holy men. The holy men.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, so that one was weird. So the preacher group is based off a bunch of like biker-esque type guys.
Yeah, but a little BDSM.
Yeah, but yeah, like, so I think the weirdest part, which, I'm saying weird as like I didn't expect that. I'm gonna keep saying this word. I should just take a shot. Like, I wish we were drinking now. Just every time I say the word, I would just.
I'll take more kombucha. No,
kombucha. It's just that you see all these tough guys who are like, oh, okay, these guys are definitely dangerous and racist or whatever, but they're like slaves to the goddesses, of your BDSM fan, and then they'll just like do whatever the women say. Like, I was like, oh, that was a weird twist, but I like I can't remember. I'm trying to pronounce his name. Jason Mantzoukas.
Yeah. I always think of Adrian Pimento.
Yeah, Adrian Pimento from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is funny because they're both in the show with Stephanie Beatrice. And yeah, I like his character, but that group was just like, this is just weird just to kill time. Like,
yeah, it felt like maybe there was like a few ideas for like, tribes that they're just like, oh, these can go together and sort of work. It's like I didn't really understand why they were called the holy men outside of him, sort of having an orthodox attire.
Yeah.
But I also just like didn't really get his character. And it just felt not out of place. Like, it's like it fits in that world, but just kind of sloppy. A little bit of the same when the episode where they go to the milkman's stop.
Yeah.
I liked that episode, and I thought there was some funny jokes and stuff.
Yeah. That felt more world building and a little bit of John Doe background, because you have like, oh, these milkmen stops are like safe havens for milkmen to kind of like get fuel, which who's paying for this fuel? That's what I'm
and like who's pumping it to this place?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening?
And then also like they pay with money, like those, like they were kept getting things as a bartender. So this is very reminiscent of current world, but like, where's the commerce? Like, do you do really things aside? So yeah, there was like maybe like 2.5 episodes of this whole series that was kind of like, it's just kind of weird. They introduced Bloody Mary, which is his old love interest, but she is also a Twisted Metal character, but her character is quasi like in the show. Like, she was gonna get married, but the Twisted Metal people, like, this whole tournament killed her husband, and her desire is to go get get her husband back and everything like that. So, I mean, yeah, I think if you're gonna go weakness, that episode plus the preacher episode half, because that team is just weird. But I liked it because that episode showed the backstory of John Doe and how he got Evelyn. And
I liked the backstory. I like the backstory more than, blowing up the car. I like get why they did that. It's that part of the season where you need like a death, essentially, but they didn't want to kill one of the characters yet. But I didn't vibe with that episode a ton.
Yeah.
And I felt like frustrated. I'm like, they could have resolved this so differently. And like, for him to risk his life to get the car when it was like such a dangerous circumstance, it felt to me like this is not how it would have played out.
Yeah.
But it had to, so that they could accomplish these things.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Yeah. But just to move along, the last couple of things I want to kind of talk. So you mentioned earlier the Twisted Metal, like final, like this is actually Twisted Metal, what it's like in the video game, the showdown between Agent Stone, Sweet Tooth,
John Doe,
Quiet, plus all Twister, plus I can't remember who the truck person was, and I think that was it, and a lot of like kind of like random people.
Fodder to die.
First thing I have to say is like, you obviously can tell that it was a showdown and it was a set that they were allowed to kind of like do stuff because it's a racetrack, which is kind of funny because, we make videos, so we can kind of see like the key times. You're like, oh yeah, they're in a place where they can kind of fuck around and do whatever they want. So it's like setting up the sets and everything. But I really love the action looked really bad when you actually like think about it, but if you turn your brain off,
It's fun.
it's great. But
no,
go ahead.
No, I thought it was a really fun sequence. It was kind of clear what was happening. You knew all the characters that hadn't been introduced before were all gonna die, and they all die. And you're like, okay. But I enjoyed it. And then Agent Stone is not, like, I can't remember. Was he confirmed dead, or was it just like he's probably dead?
Yeah. So they didn't really show it. They just Quiet basically left. Quiet and John Doe finally defeat Agent Stone. Mm-hmm. They find him in the similar situation that Quiet was found with Agent Stone, right. And then he kind of gave him a gun. It's like, either you can die slow or you can do it yourself. Yeah. And Agent Stone, the driveway and hear a gunshot. In my head, I would like to think that he didn't kill himself. He's probably going to be antagonist in the next series. I'm kind of hoping for that. Yeah. But obviously, if this is going to be one season, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, he shot himself.
He was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if this was the end, I agree. My interpretation is he shot himself.
Yeah.
But I'd be okay with him coming back and being like, you think the law would end itself? The law never dies.
Or he tries to kill himself and just like Sweet Tooth, like he just couldn't die even being shot in the
maybe.
head.
And he'll have like half his face blown off.
Yeah.
Or some shit.
Actually, the one thing I kind of want to bring up, I think the most perfect thing was when Sweet Tooth got his head lit on fire.
Yeah.
Because that is exactly how he looks in the video games.
Yeah. I had no idea how they would get there. Because I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, this Sweet Tooth looks right most of the time. Yeah, like, hey, he can't have a flaming head, but like, yeah, otherwise I'm pretty pleased with the way he looks. And then they literally light his head on fire. And it doesn't feel like stupid.
No.
Like, it is stupid, but it fits. And I was like, the fact that they were able to get me as an audience to the point where I was totally okay with this crazy person lighting their head on fire because they're fucking crazy. I was like, good job, show. You did it.
It's just so weird how they pulled it out. To me, I don't know. Maybe he's, maybe he took Joe, like, Samoa Joe, and then they just keep showing Sweet Tooth, and then I just kind of grew to love him. I'm like, yeah,
maybe.
Anything goes for my man Sweet Tooth, and just kind of did it.
You can have anything, baby.
Yeah. The one thing is that for the ending of the whole show is that John goes to San Francisco, delivers the package that he was supposed to get in Chicago. Quiet kind of quasi betrays him, or
no.
She kind of, it looks like he betrays him, but he kind of like, push him to the thing that he wanted the most.
Because he wasn't going to go in because he wants to be with her, but she's like, that's stupid.
John Doe gets in San Francisco, lives the life that he's been kind of working really hard for.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but he kind of like realizes that this life is a lie, or it's not for him anymore. And he wants to find quiet.
Yep.
And this is when he kind of sees that, the people of San Francisco, the lady kind of like had other intentions to him, kind of shows him that he actually used to live here, which was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it reveals what the main story of Twisted Metal actually is. So this whole thing was a prologue, which was really kind of cool. My expectations was definitely subverted there. I was like, oh shit, like I wasn't watching Twisted Metal. I thought this whole thing was Twisted Metal with just kind of a big Gopher storyline. Is that this is where like the game actually starts, is that it's Calypso rules Chicago, which is kind of cool. I love that whole interaction when they were in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
It was really neat. I'm not gonna ruin what the item was, because it was kind of fun just seeing that kind of like reveal. But so in the video games, Calypso, at least the first one, the canon story after the first one is Calypso is now the person who has the power to grant wishes or whatever the person desires.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady in San Francisco wants John Doe as her driver to fight in this Twisted Metal tournament to get her desire. So it was like, it just made me smile that this whole thing was just a setup for season 2.
As long as they get to season 2.
Yeah, as long as they get season 2, Peacock has a really bad situation on how it handles properties because no one goes on Peacock. Surprisingly enough, like I got access to the show for some way, but
Pirate cock. Wait, no.
no way. But yeah, no. So yeah, Twisted Metal. I hope they get season 2, but how the writer's strike is happening right now, I'm very worried about a lot of properties.
I think shows like that are kind of some of the first victims. Like the not huge shows, like the Stranger Things are going to be fine and stuff, but it's the B and C tier shows that maybe would have gotten a new season, but it's like, well, no, we're not, when we're coming back, we have limited capacity for production. This show is not going to make it. The same with like shows like Glow, where I can't remember what it was, but it's like there was supposed to be a 4th season or a movie or something, and then it's just like some production hiatus happened, and it was like, no, that's it. We're not doing it. And it's like,
not doing it anymore. But yeah, like, I mean, even like I had to cancel my AMC A-list tier membership because there's no new movies coming out, really. The only ones I'm expecting and what I want to watch is The Creator and Equalizer 3. And that's only 2. That's only 2 I want to watch. Sorry? Equalizer 3. That's
already out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's already out. So I just be meaning to go watch it.
Go get your AMC membership back, baby.
Well, I mean, I have it. I only have 2 more weeks. So
go. Yeah,
that in.
I'm excited about that. I'm kind of excited about the Marvels. Looks like it could be okay.
I think it'll be fine. I think it's weird because now all the promo is like, they spent $130 million making this movie. I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Most expensive movie directed by a woman of color, which is cool, but it's also like it's still a Marvel movie. Like, okay, cool.
It has the capacity to suck. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's
but yeah, so yeah, Twisted Metal is gonna be good. Hopefully enough they'll get canceled.
Yeah.
Here's another movie that was surprising. Like I when I watched it, I just had it and I was like, I'm just gonna watch this movie.
Yeah.
It's on Disney Plus now. Is Elemental. Which is Disney Pixar's latest and greatest.
Not greatest.
Not greatest. Movie about the 4 elements: earth, wind, water, and fire.
Yeah, it's like a town. It's like Zootopia, but instead of animals, it's the elements.
Yeah. So based enough, it's based enough a rom-com and self-discovery, slice of life, and all that kind of things. And I'll be honest, I had very mixed expectations on it.
Okay.
How about you?
My expectations were pretty middling as well. I was very much turned off by the trailers, but I generally am. Pixar trailers are always bad because they're for kids. They're not for me, and so they always have the shitty jokes. Yeah. And the one joke that I kept being so fucking pissed about was when they're trying to break in. I didn't know what the context was at the time, but they're trying to get into somewhere, and they got to go through a chain link fence, and he waters through it, and he throws his shirt over and catches it.
Yeah.
And then she just burns through it, and they're like, "Why does this even exist?" And they're like, "I don't know." And to me, it was so indicative of they're not that interested in world building.
Yeah.
It's more just it's our world, but the elements, which turned out to be partly true, but also the movie has some pretty cool, nifty world building ideas.
Yeah.
But so my expectations were mid, and I wasn't super hyped, but I love Pixar. I know they're not in their prime anymore, but I still watch every single Pixar movie.
Yeah.
And I have a deep passion for the ones that I love.
Yeah.
But this one is not one that I loved. I liked it. I really liked the visuals, and there's these really impactful, beautiful, romance moments where it's just what's the water guy's name? Wade.
Wade.
Where Wade is just so in awe of Ember, and he just says these beautiful, sweet things, and the visuals accompany it, and there's this just really these impactful moments, or even kind of a more sensory experience where Ember is walking beneath the bridge, and in this world the SkyTrain pushes water over the edge, which seems pretty fucking rude when it's going through a fire town, just saying.
Yeah.
But it creates this kind of effect where it's like she's kind of in like a water tunnel and she reaches out and she touches it. And it's like these beautiful, like sensual, not like in the sense of like, you know, sexual, but like strong sensory input moments that were just like really beautiful. But I thought that the plot and all the connective tissue was so messy. Like this movie was trying to be 5 different movies all at once. And it was like kind of confusing. And it was like the plot kind of just kept like switching gears on you. And you're like, oh, it's like a sweet romance movie where she's like learning to love someone that is like different than her. Oh, it's about, you know, saving the family store. Oh, no, it's about saving the world. Wait. Oh, no, it's back to romance. Oh, God. Okay, shit.
Now it's back to immigration.
And it was like, it was just trying to do a few too many things. And to me, it seemed like they didn't figure out what the core of the movie was. Is they knew what they were like exploring, what they were digging material out of, but they didn't have a vision for like where we're taking this thing. And it's a messy movie, but it's not bad.
Sorry. Like I kind of wanted to like jump in there.
Yeah,
so
please.
I do this thing with movies and TV shows that has probably got me in trouble with you a little bit. And I think Riley too is, I think first thing is I will watch things sometimes in chunks. If I'm not like 100% into it, there's some moments, I will watch it like 1/3 and then do something and then come back to it and start watching it again and then stop and then come back again. So sometimes I could be like 3 times I'd come back to it, or 4 times even as much, because I'm doing things. So I consumed it like that. So I mean, the overload part I never got because I just didn't sit through it, watch the whole thing. But yeah, like I think the movie was like, oh, the Zootopia movie, do that, and then add all those like cool subversive things like Zootopia had. Zootopia was a great movie. Like,
very
you
good
have to
movie.
think about it. But they were able to construct something really well, and then you have to think about it to go, oh, they were talking about this and this theme. This one, it was just like switching gears too many times. But what I liked about it was the whole immigration part, because that hits home with me twice when you think about it. Like right now I'm doing it and my parents doing it, and seeing that whole aspect of like her dad, the father. Like I'm not gonna give a synopsis to it because just go watch it. But here's the one thing that kind of pissed me off the whole movie was the part where they found out where the water was coming from, and she fixes it with tempered glass. Or that whole plot hole is that Wade finds out where the water is coming from, and they won't fix it because he turned guys into concrete. I was like, that doesn't matter. Fucking fix it.
Yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. No, I agree. I thought there was things like that where it's like, this makes no sense. Like plot it falls apart if I think about it at all.
And then also it's like, and then she has to fix it. It's like she can make beautiful artworks with glass, and she can make glass, but she has no idea how to make tempered glass, even though she stumbled and did it accidentally, but it still didn't fucking work.
Yeah.
Why?
It's
like,
super silly.
It's so dumb. Like I was just like, this whole part, like if they took away all the fantasy element parts, this part still wouldn't make sense. Like you go to New York, it's like, oh, there's a leaky thing and it's gonna kill everyone.
You fix it. What?
It's like, whoa, like that wouldn't work. So that's one thing I kind of like got a little bit really upset. That what really kind of took me out of the movie. But like the whole immigration part, like just it made me tear up. Just apparently like the one part where the dad was telling you about how he left, and his dad or Ember's father's dad didn't really reciprocate and everything. And I just like, for me, and at the end where she was leaving the dad to go off to do her pursuits, like that hit me because like
that was beautiful.
I was like, oh, that was beautiful. God, like that literally killed me because it's like, oh, I just went through that too. Aww. So, oh man, like there's a lot of parts in the movie where those was amazing. There's a lot of parts in the movie was really stupid, but I will say is that I would go if you have Disney Plus and you have nothing else to do, especially this season coming up, go watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the watch. It's the nice thing about animated movies is they're usually capped at about an hour and a half, and so you can get through it pretty quick. They're always engaging because they're meant to be very stimulating for kids. So as an adult, it's just like it's generally a good watch if it's not a cringy kids movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up that scene where they're talking about the backstory of the dad leaving the Fireland to go here, because I got really fucking distracted because he's talking about that like the whole village was destroyed, so I had to go. But in that shot, it's only one house that's destroyed, and then in a later shot, you see the whole village is fine. And I was like, wait, what? And I thought I was like, oh, I'm so like I figured it out. I thought it was the dad lying about why he left. I thought he was like telling a story of like, oh, the whole village was destroyed, but I had to leave. And no, he actually did something that made him like have to leave because he was ashamed or something. And I was like, oh, that'd be an interesting twist. But no, it turned out that the visuals didn't match up to what they were saying. And I thought that was really weird.
Yeah, nature just fucked that one guy.
That one fucking house. I was like, what the hell? Okay.
Yeah, even though it's like my dad, I could live with my dad for like a couple months and rebuild.
No, dad's an asshole.
But the dad is a supreme asshole.
So I was really just distracted by that. But I did fucking love the moment when she bows to him and he bows back. I thought that was incredible because like all he ever wanted was for her to have a better life. Yeah. And he fought for that. And it's like, I was glad that there wasn't a whole sequence of, her hiding her desire to not run the store. Mm-hmm. And I was glad that was resolved very quickly where he sold the store to the people that lived there, essentially, that were like always there.
I don't think he sold it. I think he just retired and just hired those guys, maybe. They weren't really that clear about it. Yeah. But yeah, I really love the whole thing. He's like, oh, that's what you want to do? Yeah, no problem. It's all good. It's like, oh, thank God. Like they just like the dad was understanding and not like, no, I built this up. And I think it was just like what kind of like how I look at it is I relate this movie a lot is like when the family was trying to search for a place to live, that hit me on a personal level, not because of my parents, but when I was here, I think a couple episodes, Julie and I were almost on the verge of panicking, trying to find the place that we're in right now because we're like hitting up so many people and no one would let us live with Cadence because she was so big. Because we're like, oh yeah, she had dogs. It's like, oh yeah, I'm fine with small dogs. I'm like, define what's small, like 10-pound dogs. I'm like, oh, what about 70-pound dogs? And if you know Cadence, she's a very sweet girl. Like she just barks once. But like. Yeah, like to me, like I was panicking, and I remember this one real estate agent that we currently work with, and she kind of just said a really bad joke that I think she instantly regretted saying. She's like, "Oh, would you ever think about giving up the dog?" And I was like, "Fuck you, no, like that's a non-starter." Like, and then she kind of backtracked, like, "Oh no,
I was joking, it wasn't real."
No, like so, yeah, like I think just seeing the father, mother. Or pregnant mother just like searching for a place just made me kind of go, yeah, that super sucked.
Yeah, I like that little sequence. I thought the first 10 minutes of the movie actually really were promising because it's like there's no dialogue or there's almost no dialogue. And it's really just like a visual story of like how hard it is to get grounding in a new place. Yeah. And I really like that. Yeah, like they're going from place to place. And, oh, sorry, like dry brush or like dry hair, like all that stuff. And like how showing that like, no, it's hard. The one thing I'll say that kind of works against the metaphor, because I think it works pretty well, having like the different races be different elements or whatever. Yeah. Is that like the different elements like kind of have different requirements. So it's like what works for water and earth and air doesn't work for fire and vice versa. Yeah. And like I think one of the parts of the metaphor that I really liked is that like this world was built for water. Water was there first. Yeah. And then like the others kind of like fit in and adapt. And so really a world built for water won't help fire. And that's true. Like America is built, for the rich white people. Like they took it from the native people, the First Nations people, and they imported, black slaves for themselves, for it to be as good as possible. So like they're the water, and the country is built for them to thrive.
Yeah.
And other people can come and adapt, and like to survive there, you have to adapt and kind of make it work. So I think the metaphor works that way. But I also think that like it's like also true that like, hey, sorry, fire people, you can't live in my tree.
Yeah, I know. I was like looking at it too, because when you go to like Wade's family house, it's like, oh, this whole apartment building, this apartment or condo, whatever, is water. Like there's no way you could live here. So I mean, like,
please build housing for fire people. Like we need that too. But like, I thought because there's like actual restrictions because of the elements, it sort of waters down the metaphor a little bit.
Because he's like, oh, being so racially outcasted, and I have to go into this abandoned house and make it my own. Like that was kind of cool, but it's like, it didn't make sense. But I think the one kind of thing that's kind of weird is after the end when they rebuild instantly, because like the timeline from rebuilding after the big disaster to her moving away is like only 2 months. So there was like, I'm not sure you remember, there was like a swipe and you see like the Firetown rebuilt, but now there's like water and earth, like everyone living in Firetown. I'm like, there was no way there's a cultural shift in 2 months.
And also like, if anything, that's like kind of gentrification where it's like, oh, they're rebuilding these land. Oh, why don't we like take the opportunity to buy the land for cheap and, rezone for water people?
Yeah, like, fuck
that's
these
kind of
guys.
fucked up, man. Yeah. Oh, sorry, poor fire people. We're going to put in some air apartments.
Yeah.
It's like,
so it didn't really make sense. But I think overall, I would say give it a watch. Like, I think you will be don't. Like Twisted Metal, don't think about it too hard. Just kind of like let it go. Mm-hmm. And then if you still don't like it and you want to go back to good things, just go watch Zootopia. I've watched it.
Zootopia is definitely better than Elemental. It's more consistent, but I think Elemental had these just fantastic, impactful moments. Yeah. Maybe more than Zootopia did, where you can just see like someone really had a vision for what that was.
Yeah.
And what I'll say is when you're done the movie on Disney Plus, just let it autoplay the making of. The making of might have been a better movie than Elemental itself.
I haven't watched the making of. I will watch it.
Fucking awesome. So it's about, it kind of follows the director he's a big Pixar guy. He's been around like since at least Up, but I think earlier than that, like Monsters Inc. or something. But he's voiced a lot. Like I won't spoil it, but like he's voiced a lot of characters. And I was surprised. I was like, oh, okay. And it's talking about his experience because his dad was was an immigrant from Korea, and he ran a grocery store in New York, and so it's based on his experience and like this stuff, and then he just like is just a really interesting guy, and like the stories are more interesting, and kind of like putting a visual to it and seeing the dynamics of his family. Yeah, it was so good. It was just a fantastic watch. Yeah, and so I would recommend watching Elemental if you like Pixar movies, but then I would highly, highly, highly recommend watching the 40-minute documentary that plays after.
Probably much better in the grand scheme of it. But
it was really good.
All right, so let's go with what we probably both have the highest expectations. At least for me, I had high expectations because of just what Bethesda does.
Yeah, my expectations are weird with Bethesda games. So my first Bethesda game that I played was Oblivion. I remember very specifically buying it at the store. I can't remember if I like found out about it or if it was like one of those games I just liked the box and box art or whatever. But I got it and I brought it home and it didn't play on whatever graphics card I had. And so I remember being like, fuck. And so I had to do chores and save money to buy one. And so I had to wait like a couple months to play Oblivion. Yeah. And I played it and I never played anything like that. And like it was one of those ones that was janky, and I recognized that it was janky, but it was so cool even at the time. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember the game would play, but if I went into an Oblivion gate, it would crash, and there was nothing I could do. So
you can't play the game.
No, one of the intro missions forces you to go into an Oblivion gate, and so I remember like that was it. I just couldn't play it, and so I got a new graphics card a few months later, and I was able to play it, and I loved it. I'd never played anything like it, and I was so into it and so engaged. that when Fallout 3 came out, I was blown away. I fucking loved it. Maybe even more. New Vegas came out. I fucking loved that too. All the expansions. And I remember being really excited about Skyrim when that came out. But I played it, and it felt so cheap to me. Like it felt so it felt so streamlined. Like they had lost like the depth and like the kind of rough edges that made it have personality, and it just like didn't hook me. And so I probably paid like 30 hours of Skyrim.
Yeah.
And I just like stopped playing and like never thought about it again. And then obviously it's persisted. And I've tried a couple times playing with mods and stuff, and I just like, it never clicked. Same with Fallout 4. Probably paid about 20, 25 hours of it. And like, I liked it, but I feel like it lost its edge. And that's how I felt with Bethesda, is it's like, they're kind of doing the Ubisoft thing where they always try and say political things and do interesting things, but they don't actually want to make a statement. Yeah. And so I've always found like their stories have become less and less interesting, more and more polished, but more and more about nothing. Yeah. And so going to Starfield, I had like high expectations, but I wasn't like, I'm kind of past my Bethesda phase. I think like Witcher fucking and GTA have shown, or Red Dead Redemption just showed me what like a real living open world can feel like. Yeah. And so I've always found the Bethesda games feel procedurally generated, and like there's a lot of repeated assets and shit.
Yeah. I think you're hitting the nail on the head for me. Like for me, my history of Bethesda started back in Elder Scrolls Morrowind.
Okay.
I was really looking forward. I wasn't. I was so excited to play Oblivion, which was to me amazing, because that game was representative of what was the fix to all the RPGs that I ever played. Is like, you're looking at a battle, you see visually you hit the person, but it says miss, and you're like, what the fuck?
What the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah. This one was like, you see it, you hit the person, you hit the person. Like, if you miss, you fucked up. You suck.
Yeah. You suck.
Yeah. And that was great. I stopped playing Oblivion because I turned into a vampire.
Oh, it's so annoying when you turn into a vampire.
Yeah, I didn't know, because you don't need to sleep in that game. And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna sleep. And it's like you wake up and you have the feeling of blood. I'm like, oh, and I looked it up. I was like, a vampire. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how did that happen? Yeah. And then I just stopped playing. I was like, no,
totally fair.
I'm out. And then I played Skyrim. I didn't finish Skyrim. Fallout 3, I finished Fallout 3 plus New Vegas, which wasn't Bethesda technically.
Yeah,
so
City on it.
I have like kind of a weird, just like your relationship with Bethesda, is that I really like it, but also I'm not into it anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember when Starfield was announced, and I think it was like Bell and Plouffe and everyone at LNG was like, yeah, Starfield. And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I felt too.
Yeah. But my expectation was high because it is a Bethesda game.
And it's like the first big Xbox exclusive in a long time. Like they've had such a rough go of it for the last like year or so, where it's just like all the exclusives kind of come out and suck. And it's like,
and I remember like going back to the Xbox game show, like we were both pretty jazzed for Starfield, because there was like a lot of cool little things you can do, and the trailer looked really cool. Yeah. And everything was going good. And, by the tone of this voice, if you're listening or watching, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So yeah, I set up my PC. I literally installed Starfield over 5G because I had the T-Mobile thing, and I just want to just punish that T-Mobile thing.
Hell yeah. Fuck you, T-Mobile.
Yeah, fuck you, T-Mobile. Oh, I'm on T-Mobile. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff with T-Mobile.
No, fuck you, T-Mobile. You're never sponsoring this podcast.
No. Oh my God. You have a lot of money. But yeah, I felt like the game didn't have a lot of soul to it. And I think that's what you're kind of hitting is like, if there's no jank to it, like Oblivion had a little jank to it, kind of give it kind of personality and charisma. This one felt like, okay, let's go with the checklist. Like we're gonna do this and do this and do that, and I'm only 2.5 hours in. I'm not even finished.
Oh, wow,
I'm still with Sarah, and I'm already bored. I'm like, I shot a couple guys. It was cool. And I was just like, then you go back to your ship and you have to scan a bunch of shit. And then
I hate scanning.
you just go and do it. And then you just go to the next place. And I'm like, I'm kind of done.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit further than you. I think I'm
Yeah.
level 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And I am liking it more as I play more because it opens up and you kind of get to, like, there was a moment this weekend I played and I was like, oh, it finally feels like a Bethesda game. It's not some shitty ass linear like game with kind of janky everything, but like not in a fun janky way, just kind of in like a, oh, they didn't do a good job way.
Yeah.
So my experience is, it's good. It's not, so for me, an open world game that I'll love, I kind of have to want to inhabit the world or be so immersed that I'm like, I just like am there, you know, like they were like Red Dead Redemption 2 or The Witcher 3. And it's like the story can do that. The graphics can do that.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be systems that draw me in that way. And so far in Starfield, it's not a world that I like want to inhabit. I find it interesting. Like all the cities are different and it's cool. Like going to the different planets and being like, oh, this one is like, you know, the generic Utopia sci-fi city. Oh, this one is like the minor city. This one is like the cyberpunk city. And then it's like, it's kind of cool, but it's still like, these aren't real they don't feel like real places. Yeah. It feels very artificial. And then I find like when I land on the planets, it's like I can open my scanner and I can see that there's like, you know, 6 major locations on this planet, but they're really far apart and it's not fun to fucking like sprint between locations. And like, yeah, you can scan things on your way. Do you like run up to something and you press E and then you have to run up to the next thing and press E and then run up to the next thing. And it's these big empty spaces with very little in between. And I'm finding that I'm like not enjoying just like going in a direction. And that to me is essential of a good open world game is you can just kind of like go. And it's like, no matter where you go, you're gonna have a good time. And like, yeah, you know, Fallout is a post-apocalyptic world. So like there's empty space, but it always felt like there was a discovery to be had everywhere you go. Yeah. And I'm having a hard time feeling that in Starfield.
Yeah, like Fallout was like super perfect for that. Like now, like I can play it again. I'm not gonna get surprised, but there was always like I remember when you first play Fallout, maybe Fallout 3. You just kind of like go in the distance. You just like playing the jams, and you're like, yeah, this music's great. And then you're like, oh, you're getting shot at. You're like, oh shit. And then you find out there's this whole like back lore story to this town, and you're like, oh shit, this is so cool. Yeah. Or it's like this guy in a robot building robots and versus a guy raising ants, and then you kind of like, oh, who do I choose side with? Like that. Yeah. That stuff in Fallout was so cool. Yeah. I'm just so struggling to go, okay, like why do I care?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's going to get better. It's like, I noticed that I'm getting more into it the more I've played, but there's been like, you know, encounters where I'm just like really not impressed. Like I was really excited. I was running in between locations and I saw a ship come in from atmosphere and land in a different direction than my objective was. And I was like, fuck it. I've got to go see what's on that ship. Yeah. And so I ran up to the ship and I was like sneaking and I'm like, oh, I bet there's going to be like pirates or some shit. I'm going to kill them all. There's nothing. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And I go on the ship and there's just like a dude at the cockpit being like, oh, my ship just needs some repairs. I'm going to be here a while, but you can hang around if you want. And I was like, huh? It's not like a mission. It's not this. And like, I probably could have killed him and stolen the ship, I guess, but it didn't look like it was a much better ship than I had. Yeah. And I was so disappointed. I was like, bro, I saw this ship arrive from atmosphere. Why isn't this a fucking side quest? Like, why isn't this like the start of something incredible? And maybe I missed, you know, the key thing or something, but I was surprised to have that happen because it was the one time that something like that happened where I was like, oh, I can go just fucking see. Because like when you go to the worlds, you know, you're on a hill and you can look in every direction and every objective is like a kilometer away in a different direction and everything in between is just empty space. And there might be like, you know, a little encampment with like one chest, or there might be like and there's like no enemies. And so I don't know. I just don't find it fun to explore. I think the shooting feels pretty good, but so far the loot has been thoroughly underwhelming. And the combat encounters, the design is really boring. It's like the levels aren't really well thought out for shooty things. It's like they kind of just like, design these spaces, and then they're like, let's just put a bunch of people in here. And it's like you compare it to like, it's not a fair comparison, but like Doom or Doom Eternal, and it's like these levels are designed to be like so exciting to move around and shoot in.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, it felt like it wanted to be a cool shooter, but they would like, you could just see like Todd in Bethesda going, no, that this spaceship would never work.
Yeah.
In this, so it like, I remember I went to the moon, like that starport, like
sure, yeah.
That is right near the beginning, and then it was just so weird. Like I missed it too. I was kind of hoping I was like, I'm gonna like they're like those people shooting each other. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like persuade one side or persuade them to stop. And they both just like looked at me and started shooting.
Firing,
I'm like, like this sucks. Like, oh, I wanted to have some fun.
Yeah. There's I always love when it's like you get to talk to people and it's like clear. It's like if you fuck up, like it'll give you kind of options where there's like the persuasion mini game. So it'll be like, persuade or bribe or fight or like keep talking, and you can kind of choose and then play the ways you want to. And if I can persuade people, I'm thrilled. And it's like if I can avoid a combat by talking to people, it's so exciting. Way more exciting than combat. And so like there's really good stuff in the game, and I'm excited to keep playing. Like after this podcast, I'll probably play like 40 minutes before bed or whatever. Yeah. And like I'm looking forward to it. So it's obviously like it's good. Yeah. But I don't know, it's just like it's not like there's nothing about it that's like really grabbing me. And it's like it's hard to just I don't know specifically what I'm hoping for, but it's like none of it's coming together the way I want.
Yeah, cause like how I kind of look at it is that, did you play the first Mass Effect? Do you remember the first Mass Effect?
Oh yeah, I sure fucking did.
When I played the first Mass Effect, I was kind of underwhelmed a little bit because, well, hear me out. I love the story. The story was great. The story was like cool, like ooh, who's the precursor? Is like blah blah blah. But the one thing that kind of sold me at the time was like you can go to all the planets and do all this stuff, and like that sucked. Like that was the worst part. Mako. Oh yeah, the Mako shit. Like that's what this is reminding me of. It's like, oh, you can go to the moon. Like your mother was like, hey, go to this Starfield, or I can go to the moon. And I was like, I really want to go to the moon.
Yeah, why would I want to go?
Nah, fuck it. I'm not gonna go to the moon. Yeah. So I was like, it just, to me, it's like, it felt like there's so much fluff, and I just really want like a core concept game. Yeah. Like, I just want to have fun. I want Mass Effect 2. That's what I want. I want Mass Effect 2. Like, to me, that was like my most favorite sci-fi game because it's just so cool.
It's funny. So my favorite Mass Effect is Mass Effect 1. It's aged poorly, and so now I'm like, I would never be like, my favorite, the one I most want to play is 1. No, 2 is the best in some ways. 3 is also fucking awesome, except for the end. Like, everything into the end of that game is incredible. Like some of the ends of those storylines is so good. But back to Starfield, it's I don't know what I want of Bethesda, but it doesn't feel like, it feels like there's a lot of stuff to do, but it never feels like it's the best stuff to do. And I would way rather have a smaller game that's really concentrated with its best content. And I don't, like, I've realized over the last couple of years, I just don't love open world games in general. Like, I think that it's a stupid, I know it's not a stupid genre. It's a genre that has a purpose to waste my time. Yeah. And I don't want that. I want like short, really condensed, like thoughtful and artful experiences. And open worlds aren't that. Open worlds are designed to make you get immersed in the world and like get lost and like lose track of time. And that's really not the kind of experience I'm looking for. Yeah. So Starfield might not be for me, but it's fun and it's good. And they did, like, the shooting feels better than any game they've done. And the menus are the fucking worst. Yeah. I actually can't believe how bad the fucking menus are.
It's so surprising how bad it is. And, you know, even when you think about it, even Fallout's was a little bit janky, but it was still kind of like, it kind of makes sense. Like, I'm fine with this.
Well, but, and like, so, I mean, you haven't done too much space exploration, but like
It's bad.
There's nothing. The whole point, like, space exploration is just open up a menu, open up a sub menu, hit a button, wait. You get there, open up a menu, open up a sub menu, hit a button, hit another button. Okay, you're landing. And it's like, that's fucking space exploration is menu, sub-menu button. Like, fuck you, that sucks.
I would rather have, like, I'm going back to Mass Effect. I would rather have the joystick control my ship and I have to run away from the fucking Reavers. Like, I thought that was, like, way more fun than this. Yeah. I'm like, this sucks. Even like the space combat's all right.
It's fine, yeah. I haven't really enjoyed the space combat. And I was disappointed. I was like, oh, I'm going to go upgrade my ship. And I had a bunch of money. And it was like, oh, there was like a few weapons I could change, but like not really anything else. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll buy a different ship. And it was way too expensive. And so I'm sure as the systems come together, I'll enjoy it more. Like you apparently can disable ships and then steal them for yourself. And that sounds pretty cool.
Sounds cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the open world games I have enjoyed are ones that I just enjoy being in the world, exploring and just running in a direction. Yeah. There's no level of exploration in Starfield that I'm like, I just want to go.
Yeah. So, some of it, I'm not really impressed by Starfield so far. Granted, I think I might just do the game reviewer thing and just fucking speed run it and just be like, I'm done. I know what the game is about. Sure. But the one thing I want to go back to, going a little bit beyond, maybe this is what I'm expecting. My next expectation for a video game, other than Final Fantasy, I know I need to play. Is the one thing I read that kind of want to hits back to one of your points is in Spider-Man 2, the core game is just as long as the first one. So it's
quite long.
17 hours, apparently. That's what I heard.
If you just mainline it, sure.
Yeah, mainline it. Mainline it, the story. It's only 17 hours. So I was actually like, oh, okay, that's sweet. I'm good with that. But if you want to do all the side things like 60 hours.
About right, yeah.
Which is cool. So, I mean, that's an open world game, but they kind of know it's like, okay, let's just not be stupid about it. And like the storyline is this, and then we can fill it up with fluff everywhere else. But the guy has a choice going, okay, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of why Spider-Man works, I remember very early on Zero Punctuation doing a review, I think of the Infamous games, maybe Infamous 4.
Last Infamous
or
sucked.
3.
3
No, I like the First Son or whatever it was. Anyways, but he said, and it stuck with me, is like, for an open world game to be good, travel has to be fun. And it's like, I think a lot of open world games forget that, where it's like, you can just run in a direction and hop on a horse and run in a direction. But why Spider-Man's so fucking awesome, or why GTA is so awesome, is like, it's fun to drive around and rip around and shit. Yeah. And why Spider-Man is fun is it's fucking awesome to be Spider-Man and zip around and like swing everywhere. It's like, that is the game, is traveling around. And it's fun.
I think literally Spider-Man is the only game that I use maybe fast travel once or twice.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm just gonna go and just swing and run on buildings and jump on it and do parkour because it's cool.
I'm very hyped. I liked the first Spider-Man. Yeah, I loved Miles Morales, and it feels like Insomniac is like peaking or like hitting a new level of quality. Like their last games, like the new Ratchet and Clank was fucking awesome. And Miles Morales was fucking incredible. They've always been a studio that I liked, but I've never like loved their games. Even Spider-Man 1, I was like, I really like this, but I didn't love it. But I'm very excited for Spider-Man 2. I
like Spider-Man 1 a lot. I got halfway through Spider-Man Miles Morales. Okay, wait, I played it right before I moved, which was a really bad decision.
Yes.
But yeah, like I really liked it. I just gotta pick it up again. I think I might just restart it from the start because
it's pretty short. Yeah.
Yeah, but I need to do that, and then I'll play Spider-Man 3. It just so my expectation game's really high, but I just love the fact that I read that today. It was like the main game 17 hours. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I can do this. I can finish.
Yeah, I could see myself getting into the right mode where I would do a lot of the side content, but sometimes I'm not in the mood and I just want to like experience the main story, and I could also see myself doing that depending on depending. So
depending, yeah. But yeah, anyways, that is the podcast about expectations on 3.5 properties that we both enjoy to a point.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a I think in conclusion to that idea of exploring what expectations do, the things that we had the lowest expectations for, we enjoyed the most, and the things that we had the highest expectations for, we kind of are coming down the harshest. Like I think if Starfield, was this out of nowhere game that we'd never heard of, and then it came out, we'd be like, "Yo, this is fucking crazy, man! This is fucking bonkers.
Look, you can fucking like make a spaceship."
Yeah, that's crazy. And so expectations, are double-edged swords, and I think it's always good to temper your expectations. I think there's nothing worse than going in too hyped for something. Like, I remember, like, there's just like movies that I've watched and I've been so hyped for, and they're always, not always, they're often great movies, and later I can be like, oh yeah, that was awesome. But I'm so hyped and I have such a clear expectation of what I want in my head that it's just inevitably disappointing. Yeah, and so. Okay.
I need to stop you for 1 second because I just went to like when we were talking about Bethesda games. I just went to Bethesda.net and looked at the dashboard. So if you go there right now and you look at like the main thing, they're like, oh, look at all these people giving you 10 out of 10s. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But there's something that they didn't. At least I can see this on twice. Yeah. Oh no, 3 times. So IGN is notorious for giving 10 out of 10s. Yeah. So this whole image, I'll post this on Twitter after or X, whatever. So you look at it, you can see IGN Japan gives it 10 out of 10. You're like, that's kind of weird. And then you look over to your right, IGN Hispana 10 out of 10. What? And then there's IGN Brazil, thankfully enough to give it 9.5 out of 10. And you're like, those 3 right here that are like different. It's the same company, but different regions. But it's like when you actually look at this thing, it's like, this is kind of bullshit. And you look at a score that check is CZ 95 out of 100. There's probably like those publications I've never heard of. But it's like,
there always is.
This is stupid. Like, do not do this because you can easily get caught like I'm kind of doing right now. It's like, oh, you just wanted to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You wanted a clear 56 items on here so it's even and everything. But yeah, that's bad. Don't do that. But yeah, anyways, that's the podcast. So yeah, don't do what Starfield did.
What you should do is you should email us your questions or ideas for shows. letswingit22@gmail.com. Or you can reach us on X, Jono Tan 86 or The Chosen David. Yeah. If you want to hear more of me and not Jono, I've started another podcast with my partner called Fight for the Remote, where we talk about Star Trek. I'm showing Cassie Star Trek, and she's showing me Vampire Diaries, and we just talk about it. And it's like good fun because me and Cassie are in love, and we have great chemistry.
And we're just in love.
Oh, Jono, that's a different kind of love, baby. Oh man. And we just go through it one episode at a time. The first episode just came out. We recorded that like 6 months ago, but I was waiting because I was like, I think I want to redo it and restart. And it was just like, no, let's just put out what we have.
I think I kept telling you to just do it. I'm like, who cares?
I know. It's just like, I've always, with all the stuff that I've done, it's been like working with other people. And so it's like, when I'm not happy with the quality, it's easy to be like, well, like I could do it better if I like really tried. But this is like the first thing where I was like, it was really up to me to make it happen. And I wasn't happy. I was like, man, I should have done more effort into making it look good and making it sound good. And but the point is, I'm trying to sell you on this. The point is, the discussion is awesome. I would highly recommend the audio podcast version over the video. And the video is definitely an afterthought. I will be hyping up the video quality, but we have about 5 recorded. And so we're going to start releasing those weekly-ish. But check that out. I would be really happy if you did that. You can also check out our podcast on X at Let's Wing It Pod.
Yeah. And, send us some ideas because the typical movies that we're doing is going to dry up, obviously. Yeah. But video games, we're probably going to go strong because I'll probably start playing more.
Well, and the strikes are going to make it even more intense.
Yeah. So
There's some Halloween movies coming out, but we'll see. We'll see.
actually, yeah, I do want to watch Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage because A24 is producing it. So that looks freaking awesome. Anyways, well, bye guys.
Bye.